Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and State Farm. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
And thank you, Alec Webb. Welcome to MotorWeek podcast number 220. I'm John Davis, and joining me today in Studio C, MotorWeek World Headquarters, and it's about 50 feet? 40 feet by 40 feet? Anyway, is Brian Robinson, our writer and chief architect of most of our road tests.
Wow, that's giving me way too much credit.
Let's add that in your title.
Our senior executive producer, Dave Scribner.
Hello.
And our over-the-edge reporter, Greg Carlos.
Here I am.
And he is. And we've got three vehicles. We were going to talk about a lightning round, a viewer question that is probably one that a lot of people will wonder about, rant and rave, and that's about it. That's a lot to cover, so let's start. 2020 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD, the HD lineup of the Silverado. Bigger, better, stronger, all those words that everybody always uses when they come up with any full-size pickup truck. 6.6-liter V8 gas, of course, a 6.6-liter V8 diesel again, a new Allison 10-speed automatic, towing capacity 35,000 pounds if you equipped it right. The ugliest front end I have ever seen on a truck.
Any vehicle, yes.
Or anything. I don't get it. Are we after an award for just
you can't
hideous?
See it from the inside of the car.
Oh, it's a nice driving machine. The interior I thought was a decent update, but oh man, it doesn't share any body panels. I think except the roof,
except
maybe
for the roof for the first time.
Yeah,
it doesn't
first time.
share any of
It's
the
to the
1500s body.
Right.
Yeah.
You had a look of consternation there. What
I
did get
was
wrong?
thinking it was more on the max towing, but I don't know.
I could have typed in a number wrong, but I looked it up on.
It's a lot. It's all fifth wheel anyway, so who
the high
cares?
output RAM is up to 1,000 pound-feet now.
Right.
Yeah, with
This
the short bed.
This is 910.
Right, yeah. So this comes in at 910, and are we gonna?
No, because
Can you tell the
that's
difference
an
between-
optional.
Right.
The RAM is like above the normal diesel anyway.
The high.
It's the high output or whatever.
The Duramax is actually unchanged from before. That's not all new, but the 10-speed that goes with
Right,
it,
it's new.
and it made it. I wouldn't say it made a huge difference, but it made it a lot faster at the track. I know that.
It was. Go ahead, talk about the track, because the numbers were
did you drive it?
surprising.
I drove
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
Jack.
they're good.
Yeah.
They were
Okay, take
shockingly
that.
fast.
Oh yeah, it's quick off the line. It doesn't.
Torque.
Yeah,
But it was 2 seconds faster than the Ram diesel we had.
It's a lot of torque.
Was it a full 2 seconds?
I think it was.
Yeah,
Yes,
it was
it
definitely
was
quicker.
very close.
Yeah, we
Anyway.
have more questions than answers today. But
Yeah, anyway.
It was definitely
Yeah.
quicker. The gas engine is all new, 6.6-liter V8. We did not get a chance to sample that, but I don't think the front end's that obnoxious. It's a big truck.
We're so used to seeing these things, so fill up your rearview mirrors.
I think a big part of the Chevy plan, the max towing is 400 more than the Ram.
Yeah.
I think I do remember that correctly, even with less torque. But I think the big part of that, much like the 1500, is to making things easier to get jobs done.
Easier to
They
work
have
with.
Steps all over
Lots
the
of
bed.
steps,
Yeah.
and you've got don't you have a power tailgate too option, which
yeah.
I'm not sure that many people will opt for, but
I don't know. Yeah, and that's not unique. Other people offer power tailgate now, but yeah, the main thing is just the steps in the bed, making it easier to get in there. They stretch the wheelbase and crew cab models
Back
a
seat
lot
was
more.
real
so
roomy.
It's still no mega cab, but the rear seat has a lot more space in it. And all the tech up front is plenty easy to use.
The big with the towing cameras and everything like that.
Oh
too.
yeah.
which is a cool feature, especially the one that you can put on the back of the
through the
trailer
trailer.
and see through the trailer, which GMC I guess had first. I found it very small to drive. I was shocked at how small it drove. To the point where if you're out on the highway, you start thinking you do things that you might not do if you really were conscious that you were in an HD truck. So it drives nicely.
Yeah, I could agree with that, but I also had problems with my blind spots because maybe I'm just not used to driving heavy duties, and I really had troubles getting you have the two big standard mirrors, and
Right.
you have the two smaller mirrors, and I'm just very, very specific about where I like my mirrors, and I could not find the right spot. And I don't know if that's just the way Chevy had it set up, because I know they have blind spot problems in a lot of their other vehicles. That was an issue with me. And then I thought it rode fine, but when you drive a Ram heavy duty,
It's
just
smoother
so much
ride.
better,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you got to put about 1,000 pounds in the bed before the Silverado smooths out.
But I think it will appeal greatly to the Chevy fans. Is it going to stop the erosion of market share that they're losing to Ram? I doubt it. I think that's their hope.
Yeah, I don't know how the heavy duty numbers are.
Yeah.
aligned, if it's the same as the 1500s or not.
I think they've lost some market share. Of course, some of the Ram market share, matter of fact, a substantial amount of it for the half-ton is because they've continued to make the previous truck that they call a classic, and they priced it so low that a lot of people have opted for that. And
GM
that's
sells
going to
the most
eventually go
pickup
away.
trucks. GM sells the most pickup truck, but it's a whole lot of mid-sizes.
It's a whole lot of mid-sizes, plus it's also GMC thrown in there too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we give the Silverado HD a thumbs up as long as you can get past the front end. 2020 Nissan Sentra, new entry level. Well, Sentra's not really entry level anymore.
Yeah,
it's almost
takes over
mid-size, I guess, because of it's gotten so big. Greg, you're the one that has the most experience. Take it away.
Yeah, you're right. It is almost a mid-size from a sheer size standpoint. And we saw that when I was in LA and saw it revealed. Finally got to drive it, and it's it's a good-looking vehicle. They took
A lot of Maxima in it.
Yep, took styling cues right from Maxima, and then on the interior, they'll tell you that they took some stuff from the GTR, which I assume they're just talking about some of like the circular air vents that look like turbines.
Same buttons.
Nice to look at. I'm talking about the vents, not so great to work with. So the interior sees a lot more premium looking materials, not so premium feeling. There are definitely some premium feeling, but there's also a lot of areas where you start touching and it's just hard plastics. But I think it looks great.
Made to be durable.
Yeah, the seats, the zero gravity seats are standard, and those are just some great comfortable seats. They can be wrapped in quilted leather, which is nice on top grades. That's an SR grade is the top grade, and they've actually simplified their whole lineup. So there's the base S, the mid-grade SV, and then the top SR. And there's only two packages you can buy, and those are only available on the top two trims.
What a world we're in now. So you can basically, for $24,500, that's the top trim level. You can't get a whole lot of SUV for $24,500. I mean, the entry level at best on a compact. So it once again just shows how these four-door sedans are coming up to be really bargains.
And if you come in at 20, which is the base model, you get standard Nissan 360 or whatever they call
The automatic braking.
which is automatic forward and back. And this is standard. Forward and back emergency braking, lane departure warning, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert. I mean, a lot of stuff standard, which is what Nissan's banking on. So kind of to backtrack, they only offer the 2-liter i4, which is new to Sentra, 149 horsepower. But unlike Corolla and Civic, they don't offer multiple powertrains. But what they do offer is a ton of technology and a ton of safety for really not a lot of money. So max price you're looking at here before any kind of dealer markup would be $24,500, and you get a lot for it.
And compared to the Altima, I mean, it's a lot of car even compared to the Altima.
Sure, yeah.
It's a lot more money.
And I did drive it, so, a new steering system, which was a little tighter than I thought it was going to be. Not necessarily more sporty, but definitely tighter and felt more locked down because they switched to a multi-link rear suspension over a torsion beam. So it's fine to drive. I mean, it's a compact car. Power.
But it's not, I mean, 20 years ago, when you had something like this, we complained about basically it was transportation, but not much more. This is a pretty sophisticated car now.
It is, yeah. And it definitely feels more than just purely transportation from a ride standpoint and from a technology standpoint, which I think is, the technology is every bit as important as the ride on a daily basis. So I think they did a nice job there. It looks great on the outside, looks great on the inside. You can pick at some stuff. But we're talking about a car that's between $20,000 and $25,000.
I've got a question. We're pretty much universal on this program, not liking continuously variable transmissions.
Amen.
Nissan, well, that's why that's good. Save that. The Xtronic, which is their brand name for their CVT, they've basically bought into the CVT almost before anybody else, and it's throughout their lineup. Is their transmission, do you think, better? Does it feel, do you like it better? Does it kind of, make up for some of its shortcomings because of the way it reacts? Or are all CVTs the same? What do you think?
They're definitely not all the same. I wouldn't say the Xtronic is one of my favorites. I would say Honda's is probably the Accord would be at the top of my list. They all have their shortcomings. They've all gotten better. I'm not a fan of like the Subaru's simulated gears because
they're fake.
They're fake and they don't really
They don't do anything.
This is a new version that has like steps in it, which I mean, the best thing I can say about it, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm really knocking this transmission because I actually do think Nissan makes a pretty good CVT, but it was in the background the entire drive, which is where it should be in this type of car.
Fair enough. Okay, let's move on to our lightning round now, and let's see what we got.
We missed one.
Sorry.
The most
exciting thing we were going to talk about today, and John just blew right by it. Porsche's 70th anniversary event, and we had not one but two, Dave and Greg, on site for this.
Wow.
Take it away, gentlemen.
Yeah, Dave and I flew out separately, I might add, because I was actually driving the Sentra.
You didn't want to be on the same plane together.
Yeah, we have trouble traveling together. We can't do it. We take up too much space.
And if something happens, if the plane goes down, we can't afford to lose both of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
What would anybody do without us? So it was up in Sonoma at the racetrack, and basically Porsche flew out a few of their museum models. 356 Roadster.
Yeah, one of 74 of those made from the 50s.
Did you didn't actually get a chance to drive it? Did you?
Drove it on the track.
So cool, really?
Drove it on the racetrack, which
with the museum curator on hand to talk about.
But that's okay. That's memorable.
when they tell you how much it's worth, you get kind of.
It's raining. Go ahead, have fun. It's worth $4 million.
Might I add, it rained the entire time, so I'm driving on a wet track that I've never driven behind a camera car. It was an interesting event, but it's an experience. It's very cool to drive something like that where you're looking up over the whatever windshield there is. There is no roof. It's just bare bones. The shift patterns.
It's history.
So that was made for the U.S. market. I mean, Max Hoffman, who imported the cars back then, said, Porsche said, we can make 10 or so of those. And he says, you need 10 of those a week. Or don't bother.
That was a good part of the event because we were able to just talk to museum curators and they had stories. So the 901 they had, which is actually before the 911, they had to switch it over. The specific one they had, from what they told me, was on the day they made the change from 901 to 911, they made 3 cars. This was the third of those 3 that was still called the 901.
That's the last 901.
And we got to drive it. And I've always been told Porsche 911s, early ones, are not very kind to tall people, and that's absolutely the case.
And this was a barn find they found and restored. And it's pristine now.
Yeah.
Beautiful car, fun to drive. It's not as we're talking about a car from 1964.
Sure.
So
back when basically their legacy was, hold on, you're in for the ride of your life because they're uncontrollable.
Compared,
especially in the rain.
Compared to a modern 911 that we've driven plenty of, it doesn't have that get in and just wow, I can just drive this thing to the walls. But
you had to be a driver.
It's an experience for sure. And then
they had a whole evolution of the cars, and they brought along the modern counterparts. They had a 959 there, which I'd driven before, but drove theirs again on the track and really enjoyed that.
Yeah, when they ask you to drive a 959, generally you don't say.
You don't say no. I'd rather drive the
No, I'll pass on that.
van,
Where's the
thanks.
buffet?
They brought over a little forbidden fruit. They had a 996 911 GT3, which was never offered here in the States, which was just it was Dave and I were
We
actually
both drove
chasing
that
each
for an
other.
hour
Yeah.
or so.
They said, "Hey, just go drive back to the track," and gave Dave and I the keys, and we said, "Okay," and slowly walked towards our cars.
Did you find on this event, was everybody anxious to drive or not? Because a lot of people on these types of events don't really want to drive.
There was a few people had some trepidation on the track, driving a car that's expensive from the museum.
Yeah.
There's 4 or 5 cars that are just like, don't wreck this thing.
Yeah. Irreplaceable.
Oddly enough, though, I ended here is just that how comfortable they were with us getting in the car. They told us about the car. Here's how you drive it. All right, off you go onto the track, and they didn't seem to.
And
I never sensed any one of the Porsche people nervous at all about us driving the car, which made me feel a little bit better.
their whole thing with the museum is to have the cars available to people to drive them, to get the experience out there of our legacy. And
Too many museums of vehicles just never move.
They seem to be more into that. When I went
they
on
want
the
to drive our legacy, our history.
when I went on the 911 Speedster launch back in the summer, they had every version of Speedster there.
They had one there this time.
And they were like, "Yeah, you guys can go drive." And it was this super narrow road just to get into the hotel. It was like driving through a tunnel with stone walls on each side. And they were like, "Yeah, whatever, you guys go drive these Speedsters." So it was great.
Nobody scraped anything.
No, not that I'm aware of. I would imagine it probably happened, but
I'm sure.
I didn't see it.
Not on my
Thank
watch.
you, gentlemen. Now we're going to go to our lightning round. It's 2020, and we are now in the third decade of the 2000s. Wow, that's amazing. Doesn't seem that long ago we were talking about Y2K.
Y2K.
I'm still talking about it.
In the first 20 years, the
I haven't
automotive
turned my
industry
computer off since.
In the first 20 years, the automotive industry has gone through a lot. There was a recession, there were bailouts, followed by record-breaking sales, and a major shift in powertrain technology. Well, I guess. Now let's all look into our crystal ball and make some prediction about what's going to come in the 2020s. Who would like to start?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to go out on a limb and say we'll see more hydrogen infrastructure. I think there's a little bit more of an emphasis.
You mean outside of California?
Outside of California, which they're working on, but just in the last few months even, it seems like a couple of brands are really trying to keep pushing forward because I think they realize that it's not just a silver bullet problem that we're working with here or a solution. We're going to need battery electric. We're going to need fuel cell. We're going to need to keep expanding. So I'm going to predict that that hydrogen fuel cells will keep pushing on and be a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? More of a viable option for the average person.
Yeah. Brian, anything?
I'm so bad at making predictions. I don't really have any nuggets of.
I'm going to go with
procrastination.
battery technology advancing enough so you'll have 500 and 600 mile range EV cars.
You know, just this week it was announced, and I can't think of who was it. Did you see the story? Someone claims they have made that breakthrough, and they will be able to double the density. So the same size battery you've got now will be double. So you're looking at
They're
the 5
working
and
with silicon
600.
for capacitors and
Yeah.
things like that to make them.
'Cause
That'll solve your infrastructure problem right there. If you don't have to stop every 200 miles of charge, you can go.
It'll be comparable
500
to a
miles
gasoline
like you
car.
can now, like a gasoline engine, and quick charge it.
I'd like to hear what you guys think about it. Say this is now the dawn of 2030. What's going to be the state of autonomous driving at that point, 10 years from now?
I think they have cars running in convoys, like gang together with talking
And
to
trucks,
each other.
maybe.
Yeah, the platooning, they
Yeah,
call it.
platooning.
I don't see everybody driving individually linked cars, just going wherever you want, according to the car. I think they'll have cars gang together.
Or maybe in confined city areas or campuses and stuff. Anybody got anything?
I still have a hard time believing the lawyers are let it happen in a major scale. I mean, it seems, all it takes is one or two disasters to put a company out of business.
Oh,
so.
sure.
When you sit there and start thinking of everything that needs to go right and be changed to make autonomous possible for everyone, all cars autonomous, there's just so much, and I don't see it happening in 10 years.
Put them all on trains.
I do think we're going to see a lot more connectivity between cars. Just in the last couple of weeks, there's been all this discussion about mass navigation. So that if you're using your navigate, Waze or whatever to get through traffic, that the car next to you that might be using it his computer knows what your car is doing and where it's going to send you, so it won't send everybody on the same narrow back road to get around the traffic jam. And they call it mass navigation to ease traffics. I think we will see more of that kind of stuff to basically ease congestion, because it's pretty clear we're not going to build roads fast enough to keep up with the increase in vehicles. Internal combustion engine, is it still going to be the majority of vehicles sold?
In 10 years.
Partially.
I say yes.
Yeah.
As a helper for the battery pack.
Because those are evolving too. I mean, with variable compression and things like that.
I think almost everything's going to be electrified. In other words, there's going to be an electric helper of some sort, either electric turbocharger or something.
Mild hybrids are just everywhere now. A lot of people don't even realize their car is a mild hybrid.
No, they don't. So I guess what we're saying is that maybe in the next 10 years, it's going to be a continuation of what we're seeing the start of now, not necessarily. No one sees any giant revolution.
No.
Okay. Might be a good time to buy a car. We have a viewer question from Todd. He's obviously got a fairly new vehicle. And this question, when we first heard it, we thought, gee whiz, Todd, where'd you get this? And then we sort of realized that Todd's dilemma here probably extends to an awful lot of people. So here we go. He said he just started watching our show. Thank you for that. And he's enjoying it. He says, I have an eternal question that needs your help. Every time I get my tires filled at a tire shop, it seems to always be wrong. I went into a recent chain and asked the question, and it's because the technicians are going by the sticker in the door versus the maximum PSI that is stamped on the side of the tire. His 2014 Fusion says 34 PSI in the door, but the Bridgestone tires, he says maximum of 50. I'd like to keep mine at about 44 to 45 PSI because you don't want them full for expansion in the heat. So with all of that being said, what is the truth behind the dilemma? Gentlemen?
Dave, take it away.
Well, as the Gauss's Garage producer, I have to say, Pat would always tell you to follow the door sticker. The manufacturer of the car has developed that tire and specified that.
And the suspension and everything that goes
the load
with
you're carrying, the size of the car, and determine the best PSI for your car in that situation should be what's on the door sticker, not the tire manufacturer, which could go in 20 cars.
And the maximum PSI is just that. It's the most you should ever put in the tire safely under any circumstances. And the fact that you think you're leaving adequate room for expansion at 44 or 45, you're probably not.
That's a bit,
That's you might, but it's not unusual for tire pressure to go up 5 PSI on a hot day.
Way overinflated, though, at that rate.
So you're overinflating your tires at 44 to 45. Plus, you're making your car really rough.
Probably getting some great fuel mileage, though.
That's true.
That's not going to handle great, is it?
Well, when you take a look at a tire that has that much air, you've decreased the amount of footprint that's actually touching the road. The tire actually is bowed at the bottom.
There's no sidewall flex to absorb bumps or.
So, I assume that the door sticker takes into account the vehicle's weight and how a tire sits on the road. Because ideally, you don't want it to wear unevenly, so it should be flat on the ground, not underinflated with a bow in the middle.
And I'm wondering if you took a tread depth indicator, Todd, if you wouldn't find that the center ribs on your tires have worn much quicker than the sides, which means you're basically not getting full life out of your tire. The tire technician, if he's going by the door sticker and not simply saying you need 32 to 36 pounds, he's right. And I think you should reduce the pressure in your tires, and you'll probably find the car handles and drives a lot better. But again, I think that's a question that probably a lot of people.
It's a common question.
A very common question.
But it's a mistake.
Yeah. Okay, with that said, let's move on to a rant and rave. Anybody got anything that they are happy or sad or irritated about?
I had a small thing I guess I should know, but I've forgotten. I had a GMC Acadia in a recent test car. The TPM-less light came on, the tire was underinflated, and I put air in it, and the horn beeped when it got to the right pressure. And I went, wow, it does that?
GMC?
Yeah.
Wow, really?
Nissan did that for a while.
They were the first ones, but other people have added
that's
it
pretty
since
neat.
then.
It should do it all the time.
Because you don't usually often have a tire pressure gauge with you.
I had one in the garage, but it went beep, beep. Oh,
Yeah, it was all the way in the garage. What am I going to do? Walk in? I'll just estimate.
I've noticed that some of the do-it-yourself inflators that you have to put money in, they will do that. You dial up a pressure, and you don't actually have to look at it.
cuts off at a
It
certain
cuts off, or it
pressure.
beeps or something. Yeah.
I just thought it was neat.
That's pretty cool.
Made
Anybody
my
else?
day.
See, people think we know everything. We've forgotten more than we know.
Now, going back to the Silverado, though, my rant on that, I think I said before, was the automatic high beams. I had to stop and Google how to turn off the darn things.
I find that it's not consistent. Some cars it's just a matter of flipping the
There's a button on
stalk.
the stalk.
Some it's a button. Do you like automatic high beams? I do love the way the Mercedes ones. They sort of come up and go down like a gentle wave.
Can't stand them.
Can't stand them. But
I like to control what my lights pattern's going to be. I want to be in charge of that, not the car telling me, you must have bright lights right now. I don't want to have bright lights right now. I want to have the regular beams. Thank you. I'm driving the car.
anybody having any issues with car lights in your face at all? Are you noticing now that more and more people are putting LEDs on the front end?
Yeah, you can definitely tell when somebody's gone aftermarket to something they think is just brighter and better because it's terrible for the people coming at you. But yeah, what I notice is, and I'm sure we've covered this before, there's so many people who will flash their lights at cars that we're driving because they are new. They use a different kind of light. Mm-hmm. They think we have our high beams on, but I find that, we don't. And they think that
it's that blueness and that extra brightness. Just like holiday lights that are all LED. They just look brighter. Okay, thank you, everyone. I want to thank our writer, Brian Robinson, our senior executive producer, Dave Scribner, who's also our head writer, and our Over the Edge reporter, Greg Carlos, and thank all of you for finding MotorWeek on your local public television station. And don't forget, they're asking for your support to keep doing what they've done so well for so many decades. Also, for watching us on the Motor Trend cable network, and to all you folks that now basically get your MotorWeek on YouTube. Thank you. Well over 2 million, almost 2.5 million hits a month, and keep them coming. To everybody else out there, I'm John Davis. Thanks for being a part of MotorWeek.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and State Farm.